Hey, what's happening? Welcome to Maych TV. So, Liverpool are in the midst of a crisis of sorts, having lost 3 consecutive games of football. They sit second in the Premier League and they've won 1 from 2 of their opening Champions League games as well. There have been question marks over Liverpool's overall form, team gel, tactics, suitability of signings, the manager's ability, the absolute works. So what I've decided to do is create a definitive list of everything, absolutely everything that might be wrong with Liverpool right now. This is the second take of this video because on my Substack earlier on in the week, I wrote it out as a list, asked readers to send in some additional suggestions as well. And the plan was to talk through every one of these points and just as level-headedly go through them and see if there was any merit to any of them. I got halfway through the list and the video was 50 minutes long. No, none of that. So we go again. I'm going to read through the list now. You can give me some suggestions for any additional ones in the comments, and then I'm going to talk about a couple of specific points in more depth and detail, and then what I'll do is probably a second video where I address a few more as well, but you can shape that here and on the Substack in the comments section, and that will determine where we go from here. But yeah, if you haven't checked out the Substack yet, highly recommend that you do. If you enjoy me, there's more of me in a written form primarily, but these videos all live over on there as well. There's more post-match content. And I've just sent my very first ever fiction novel to print. Some more details on that to come in the coming weeks as well. But the link is in the description. You can subscribe for free or there is a paid offering. Don't feel forced into it. It is what it is. It's part of the wider Maych thing that I'm doing at the moment. So yeah, let's go through the list then. Because the list is pretty long, but I will whiz through it and then we'll talk through some of the key points. First and foremost, I just want to identify the fact that I do not necessarily condone all of the things that are on this list. I've been working on Redmen TV, as you probably know, for a decade and a half now. Throughout this 3-game sort of spell, I've been on 2 watch-alongs and I think 3 Redmen Originals podcasts and a couple of reaction videos as well. So I've seen YouTube comments, I'm seeing how other fans are talking about us, I'm seeing how pundits are talking about us, and basically what I'm trying to do is pull all of them and lay them out, and then we can go from there. So yeah, I'm going to say some things that you might go, that's not my opinion. I'm not necessarily saying that it's right. We'll get to that. So bear with me. First and foremost, the death of Diogo Jota. Let's just spend a second to talk about this one, but rather than just sort of fly past it, because honestly, you know, I think you have to be, if you can't see that this has had a major impact on Liverpool, the players, the coaching staff, the staff in general around the club, the fans, the whole mood around Liverpool Football Club, then there's a chance you might be a sociopath. It just has. It's only been, at the time that I wrote the article, it was 98 days, which probably puts it at around 99 or 100 days by the time you're watching this video, if you're watching it at the time, since Diogo Jota and Andre Silva passed away. That's about 3 months since this huge grief and trauma entered these players, again, staff lives, and you know the world of Liverpool Football Club. It's not a lot, right? It's not a long time to expect people to be over such a huge thing, but it's worth mentioning because I think I'm starting to see, and maybe you are too, just very generic football analysis and criticism coming back. Now, I remember this in a different form during the 2020-21 season after Liverpool last won the title, when they had an absolutely swathe of injuries that robbed us of all of our centre-halves, like temporarily, of course, through injury, so not a truly comparable situation, but just for illustrative purposes, people said injuries. And then after a while, they started saying, well, why are Liverpool so bad? And you go, injuries, mate. You know this, right? We've discussed this already. We've got Fabinho and Jordan Henderson playing centre half. Yeah, but is it more? Is there a little bit more to this? Maybe, but definitely the injuries thing, though, right? Can we just make sure that this gets brought back to the front? And look, it's a light-hearted way of describing it, But I'm keen to make sure that this doesn't get forgotten. You know, Virgil van Dijk has been talking about it recently. Diogo Jota looms large over Liverpool. You know, his locker is still at the AXA. I believe it's still at Anfield. His face is on banners. We sing his song on the 20th minute. There's shirts, Diogo Jota shirts being held up. There's murals. You know, this guy is being, I think it's been handled the best that it humanly could have been handled. But I wouldn't like to be critical of people who are going through that type of loss. It's definitely not in this sort of short time frame. And because there is no rule book, you might say, I'm sure everyone's got an opinion on everything. So you might take all of those things and someone might say, well, get rid of it all. But like, the players want this, and I'm sure if it was a problem, they would say, but the point is, again, there is no rule book. No one knows the best way through this. I believe that they've handled it well, and they are working their way through it. But again, all I'm trying to say is, let's not forget that this is a thing that happened, and I'm sure you haven't forgotten. But there are certainly people who are starting to let it become a bit of we know, but let's get back to, you know, horrendous football banter instead. So it's definitely worth a consideration. So let's just go through the list. Disrupted pre-season. Salah's legs have gone. Slot won with Klopp's team. Too much churn / lack of team gel. Too many key players lacking match fitness. Slot hates Chiesa. Slot doesn't know his best 11. Slot isn't playing a settled side. Liverpool weren't good, just lucky with their early wins, and now that luck has run out. Teams just play a low block against us. Liverpool had tough opening fixtures. Our tactics have been found out. Our tactics are bad. Wirtz is a flop. Liverpool's form has been bad since last season, or last March, as some of the ones I've seen very specifically as well. We failed to sign Maych. Ibu Konate's head has been turned by Real Madrid. Liverpool are missing Trent Alexander-Arnold. Liverpool are missing Luis Diaz. The media hate Liverpool. Whew. Right, so yeah, my first attempt to talk through all of those got to 50 minutes, and I got up to Liverpool weren't good, just lucky. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 more points, plus a few that have already been suggested on the Substack after that. So yeah, mammoth. I'm going to focus on the Liverpool weren't good, just lucky, and now that luck has run outside of things, because I was sat, I'd written this out for the Substack. I was preparing this video this morning. I finished in the gym and I was sat in the cafe thing having a drink, and I heard two pensioners start talking across the room to each other. Oh, our team's not doing so well, is it? Oh, well, the luck's run out, and they were definitely lucky. They were lucky to win those games, and it was said in such a tone of like, obviously, it was complete and utter luck, blind luck, that Liverpool managed to win so many football matches. Now, fundamentally, I don't believe that to be the case. But if it's become such an accepted opinion that, like, you know, two people who are, by all accounts, from the way they spoke to each other, it's not like they were best mates. They weren't even sat on the same table. They're just passing people who know each other from going to the gym. They didn't even get up to go and speak to each other. They just shouted some opinions across the room at each other. That is the first thing that kind of came up in conversation. It surely merits a little bit of further discussion. So let's do that. Have Liverpool been lucky this season? So Paul Tompkins and the Tompkins Times has done some much more in-depth work on this kind of thing, and I would highly recommend going and checking out Tompkins Times on Substack if you haven't done so already. This guy's been one of my Liverpool writing and just general attitude inspirations. It's him and Brian Reid right tippity top, and has been, you know, for 20 odd years. But he talks about the ELO club rankings and basically how good Liverpool's opposition have been across the board, and how the vast majority of them are very, 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 very good football teams. I'll put a simplistic version of this to you right now. 5 of the 7 teams that Liverpool have played in the league so far this season are currently in the top 10 of the Premier League. The other ones of that are Newcastle, who sit 11th, that's a point below Manchester United. And I think there's a reasonable argument to be made. If I asked you a question, who are going to finish higher in the league this season, Newcastle or Manchester United? And I'm very, very aware that we're due to play Man United next. So yeah, look, bad. But like, who's a better team? Newcastle or Man United? One of them's a Champions League team who won a silverware last season. And, you know, look, they've had some struggles this season. Obviously, Liverpool contributed to a little bit of that by, you know, beating them and by by paying a huge amount of money for their first choice centre forwards, but like Baltimore's kicked in, Anthony Gordon's had a suspension, can't remember how that happened. But look, yeah, to the point, Newcastle are, I think, expected to be in the top 10, even if it's at the expense of Manchester United. 5 of the 7 teams in the top 10 is a pretty good indicator of how good the level of opposition of Liverpool has been. The other one is, of course, Burnley, newly promoted, had a sensational home record that Liverpool actually pulled to an end. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Burnley should be ranked as a stupidly high kind of thing. But contextually, that was about as hard as it was going to be playing Burnley. It should get easier as they wear down or go in a quest for more points, maybe as the season progresses. But take what it is, 5 of the 7 are in the top 10 right now. Additionally, for a little bit of context, Arsenal, who currently sit above Liverpool in the Premier League, looking at what they had West Ham, Nottingham Forest and Leeds United in their opening run of fixtures. All of those games came at home as well. So obviously Forest are a European team. They were a real surprise package. I think that was Ange Postecoglou's first game in charge. In fact, I know it was Ange Postecoglou's first game in charge. I don't know why I doubted myself like that. They beat them comfortably 3-0. That was obviously in the handover period. You could argue, you know, should Forest be getting better, or actually is he anging all over it and making them worse? Was that the hardest it'll be to play Forest in the recent weeks? I don't know. But the point remains, teams that are very, very much down the bottom third of the Premier League, Arsenal have had 3 of them and they've all come at home. So comparatively, in terms of the points tallies achieved, bear that in mind when you're thinking about Liverpool's start. Now, what I want to do is a little thought experiment with you guys, and I'm going to need you to stick with me on it, because I'm going to say before I start all this, I don't think Liverpool have played very well this season. But this is a question of whether they have been lucky or not lucky, or, you know, lucky or whatever. Have Liverpool been lucky? Let's discuss that particular element. Not whether Liverpool have been good, but have they been lucky? So before you, and there's going to be a temptation throughout this, maybe to froth a little bit. That is cool. That is absolutely your right. But what I would suggest is just chill for a minute. I'm going to kick things off then. Let's begin the thought experiment. First things first. Which of Liverpool's victories this season do you think was the luckiest? Of all of them, all of the ones that we won, which do you think was the luckiest win? Let me know in the comments. Write it down now. Think of this a little bit like someone like a magician handing you a card. It's not going to be quite that sensational, you know, it's not going to change in your hands or whatever, but as a way of working this out, just write which one of the ones, you know, Bournemouth in there, Arsenal, etc, etc. Write that one in the comments below and we'll come back to it in a little bit. First game of the season at Anfield, Bournemouth. Did you think it was Bournemouth? What happened in that game? Well, Liverpool achieved a 4-2 victory. They had the go-ahead goal in the 88th minute of the game and then added another in added on time as well. If it was that, let me know in the comments. Next, Newcastle. So, very, very hard fought game, and Liverpool didn't play particularly well in this one, but they do get the noses in front and then capitulate a little. Osula scores the equaliser in the 88th minute of the game. The referee and the referee's assistant put up the board for 11 minutes of injury time, and in the 10th minute of injury time, Rio Ngamoa scores the winning goal for Liverpool. Now, An interesting question on this one. Do we feel that maybe the fact that Rio Ngamoa is a young player, and this was very much a sort of breakout moment for him as a Liverpool player as well, very, very early into his career and Liverpool career, is the fact that he's a young player, does this maybe add an element of luck to it? Or is it maybe fair to say, look, it's not like he's a competition winner. It's a mark of how good the young player is that he's actually involved and able to take that opportunity. Again, just a little thought, but if it's Newcastle, obviously that's absolutely fair. Next, Arsenal. So, the obvious champions-elect at Arsenal Football Club came to Anfield, played a very defensive brand of football. Liverpool struggled, then got to grips better with it, were definitely playing the more attacking, more dangerous brand of footy by the end of the game, but ultimately had to win the game with an absolute Dominic Szoboszlai wonder strike from a free kick. Now, I am prepared to admit that I think this, not to colour people's opinions too early on this, but I can understand people classing this as luck, because the Dominic Szoboszlai goal in and of itself was a 0.03 XG chance, which is to say a 3 in 100. So for every 100 of them, 3 of them will go in, which means 97 times it ends up in the wall, or you stub your toe, or it goes into row Z, etc, etc, etc. So from just a pure odds perspective, there is certainly, undoubtedly, an element of luck to that. There just kind of has to be. The counterbalance to this, of course, is that how do you define what luck is in that? Because Szoboszlai is actively trying to score that free kick. He is a practiced and experienced free kick taker, and it doesn't take like it doesn't hit a pigeon in the sky and then drop in. It doesn't hit the crossbar, which would technically be a shot off target, and then hit the goalie in the back of the head and go in. So it doesn't have the elements that you would normally associate with a lucky goal, but it is an unlikely goal, I think it's probably fair to say, on the balance of likelihoods and probabilities of that particular strike going in. But does that, the fact that it is ultimately a football, it's not a corner that's been caught in the wind and ended up in the top bin. He's put the ball down and he's deliberately struck it as a shot towards goal. Does that factor into the decision making a little bit? Burnley, Stonewall Pen, inside injury time. 5 minutes additional time is put up by the assistant referee. Mo Salah scores his penalty in the final minute of that, but it is won in the 93rd. So theoretically, without all the hubbub around penalties, whistle gets blown, you put it down, and you could score that with 2 minutes of football still to be played. But yeah, it is a handball. It is clear as day. There is no opposition whatsoever from the Burnley players or Hannibal, who committed the handball himself. They all slumped to the floor instead in resignation of, oh God, this has happened to us. And Liverpool get the win via Mo Salah, obviously Liverpool's talismanic goal scoring forward, and the established penalty taker for Liverpool. Atletico, well, Liverpool go 2 up at early doors in this game. It's probably the best half of football that they've had in terms of both performance and output in the first half. Atletico get back in. It's a combination of good play and a little bit of switching off at the back for the first goal, and then for the second goal, it is there's a significant amount of deflection. One might argue that there's more deflection going on in that shot than the average Tory press conference. But yeah, it is not a clean strike. It leaves Alisson totally and utterly flat-footed, and it leaves Liverpool level on score in that game. And it is also worth putting out, it's a fullback that does that as well. Just adding that in for a little bit of context. Then Liverpool win the game with a Virgil van Dijk header with 2 minutes of injury time still to play. Everton, David Moyes, Moisey, my boy, it is time to go to bed. It is past your bedtime. As much as he was desperate to kind of stir up the idea there was some mad conspiracy. Yeah, look, I'll be the first to admit there were a couple of mad little bits and pieces that happened in terms of refereeing performance. But the idea that the referee blew too soon, okay, cool. I mean, Liverpool were on a massively outnumbered counter-attack towards the Kop end when the whistle blew, right? Yeah, okay, fine. We'll overlook that one. But this is not like one of those ones where we're going to go into XG and we're going to get into the real nuts and bolts and nooks and crannies of the deeper thinking on football. Liverpool scored 2 goals and Everton scored 1 goal. I don't need to be a genius statistician. I just need to know basic math. Yeah, Liverpool 2, Everton 1. Jog on, Moisey. Southampton, EFL Cup. Hugo Ekitike scores the winning goal in that game with 5 minutes of normal time left to play, 6 minutes of additional time on top, meaning there are 11 minutes of football still to be played when he grabs the winning goal. And if you want to talk about luck, he then didn't understand the rules, took off his shirt and got sent off for it. I don't know whether that classes as luck in any way, shape or form, but he probably felt a little bit unlucky that day and possibly a bit stupid. Okay, those are the wins. Which for you, has that changed your opinion, by the way, on which you feel was the luckiest? Have I addressed the one that you picked beforehand and it made you think twice about it? If it has, then maybe edit your comment if you want and just keep it where it was, keep your original answer in there, but maybe add the sentence if that's changed any thinking and what that's making you think or feel. What we're going to do next is we're going to flip the experiment on its head and we're going to look at the 3 defeats that Liverpool have suffered. And I want to basically for you to look at it in a very similar sort of way, except let's ask the question, were Liverpool's opponents lucky? Because in that run, we saw 2 late winning goals as well. So let's talk through them one by one. Crystal Palace, Selhurst Park, Liverpool equalise in the 87th minute of that game. The referee and the assistant then put up 6 minutes of additional time and Liverpool lose that game in the 97th minute, i.e. 1 minute beyond the allotted game time. Galatasaray, Liverpool go away in Europe and lose by 1 goal, which comes at the hands of the single softest penalty decision you will likely see in your entire life. And Chelsea, the Reds go behind to a Moises Caicedo wonder strike from the edge of the box. For those interested, the XG on that was 0.04, so 0.01, slightly more likely than Dominic Szoboszlai's strike. Instead of being a 3 in 100, it's a 4 in 100 chance. Now, I only mention this because if you've deemed that the Liverpool win over Arsenal was lucky, then I just thought for context, it's worth pointing out that the Moises Caicedo goal in this game is very much cut from the same sort of cloth. That is to say, the likelihood of that being a goal from that position on the field is very, very low. If you didn't count that in Szoboszlai and you're just going down the skill route, absolutely fine. Listen, I said that and I do agree with that. But yeah, that's for true placement, I thought it was worth a discussion. What then goes on to happen is Liverpool, of course, equalise. It then goes into additional time. The board goes up for 7 minutes and Chelsea score the winning goal in the 4th minute of added on time. Right, there we go. So why am I doing this? Well, because I want to know what your thoughts are and has that changed any of your sort of thinking around whether Liverpool required luck or not. And I want to know, of all of those results, which were the 3 unluckiest or luckiest, whichever way you want to phrase it, because by my eyes, I think, let's see, Chelsea game, I think it's absolutely fair. The ref puts up a certain amount of injury time and Chelsea score, comfortably being it. There's 3 minutes of football still to be played. It's 94th minute. They work a good goal and they scored a good goal. You can't really have any complaints from that as a Liverpool perspective. In the Galatasaray game, I do think Liverpool were a touch unlucky when you put a little bit of context around it. The penalty that is given is very, very soft. And you could argue, well, no, a penalty is a penalty. Alexander Isak suffers a very, very similar sort of foul against Chelsea in the game that follows, and it is immediately waved away. And some of that is, of course, football. It's just football in it. You've got different referees. There are different standards sometimes in reffing in European football. But yeah, there is certainly something worthy of discussion in that. If that's Anthony Taylor, for example, referee in the Galatasaray game, he doesn't give that as a penalty and maybe Liverpool come away with the draw. Again, just as an example on that. Crystal Palace. Arne Slot mentioned it. It's worth mentioning. The added time board is the minimum amount of time that is to be played in the football match. So make no mistake about that. I'm not suggesting that there was actually anything particularly untoward with more football being played beyond the injury time. There's a substitution that happens in that time, and then look, sometimes the ball runs dead, etc., etc. But it is the only winning goal, the Crystal Palace winner, of all of the late winners that have occurred in Liverpool matches this season, the only one to occur outside of the guaranteed, allotted time of the football match. The official football match time is that goal. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not saying that is like wrong, or I'm not saying it's corrupt. I'm not saying there's anything evil about this. I'm just saying that if people are talking about the level of luck around goals being scored, what is more lucky on that scale? Whatever scale you're using for that, is it goals that are scored comfortably within injury time which happens in every single football match and is determined by the referee and is broadcast to everyone within the stadium? Or is it something that happens in a ethereal amount of time that is added on by the referee that can often be quite arbitrary, because we know that to be a thing? There's a reason why the whistle blows during goal kicks so many times, because referees often will let an attack run even though it's beyond. And the amount of kickoffs there are when a goal is scored, when a whistle blows. There was a famous, I think it was a Scotland game, when a free kick, a corner was taken and the referee blew the whistle while the ball was in the air for the corner, and the ball goes in and there's absolute uproar. But yeah, you know, what I'm saying is it's in a grey territory, whereas I don't think any of the goals that Liverpool scored are anywhere near in that the grey area the way that the Crystal Palace one is. And then, of course, look, I've talked around the Liverpool points. What is it specifically about those games that makes it lucky? Now, I just thought it was, I honestly had kind of fun with it, because I didn't disagree with the idea that there was an element of luck to how Liverpool were doing things. I didn't fundamentally radically disagree with that. But and equally, I'm not sitting here going, oh, people saying, look, Liverpool have been brilliant this season. They haven't. They really, really haven't. But I do think there is an important distinction between whether Liverpool have been good, bad, or lucky, or variations in between. I think it's a little disrespectful, because, you know, Liverpool have bought players, they've trained players, they've used those players. Football is played for a certain amount of time. Injury time is added because teams take things out of football matches. Teams play for time, they time waste, they make substitutions, they score goals, they celebrate, there's VAR checks. So when the added on time is not like a mythological thing, it is basically time that was taken out of the normal 90 minutes. And there is nothing wrong with scoring a goal in injury time, is what I'm saying. So if you're saying Liverpool are lucky based entirely on that, then that sounds a little flawed to me. But if you're saying that Liverpool have just been a bit undercooked or not great this season, then yeah, I agree. I really, really do. And I've watched them all. I've been to half of them. It has been very, very underwhelming, but I just think it is quite funny when people are like it's a big stick to beat them with, and I'm not here for that. I'm really not. And look, it's worth considering. There are so many more points as I listed at the top. If you want to go over to the Substack and read through, I've got some thoughts on all of those points in written form. I think I'm going to do a second video, because there's some really juicy topics. I mean, we're at half an hour already. I've got no idea how this happened, but here we are. Thank you so much to all of you who stuck with me so far. Thoughts on what I've said in the comments. I appreciate that with football, there's going to be a temptation to try and jump down with at this point and maybe take it a bit too seriously. Hopefully you appreciate over the years, if you've watched this channel before, I don't take too many things too seriously. It is ultimately a sport and it is meant to be fun. So yeah, you can get into real anger and real nuts and bolts territory. There will be more of that stuff, and there is loads of that stuff on plenty of other channels. James Alcott's doing some brilliant stuff. Chris and Josh Williams are doing great stuff on the deep dive on the Red Men channel. Obviously Paul Tompkins, Andrew Beasley, etc, etc. There's tons and tons of great stuff. I've done a bit of that, but also trying to have a little bit of fun with it as well. So yeah, if you like it, do drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and come and check out the Substack, which I'll link below. And yeah, give me suggestions of that list. Add to it if you want, and also which point would you like me to do longer form videos on? Let me know in the comments section. Nice one.